Elsa?
Yes.
Well, we got your essay paper, but it looks like half of it was cut off.
You're running fast.
Elsa?
Yes.
They said not to fax it. They said to email it.
Email it?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll do it after I start the video. Good morning. How was everybody's Thanksgiving? Acceptable? Good? Good. Hello, my dear.
How was Thanksgiving?
It was great. I don't know what I was, a lounge lizard, I guess. I rode my horse. I was up at my horse every day and then just played around. It was quite fun having 5 days off. And my daughter cooked, so I didn't have to do anything. It was great. I had to eat. That wasn't too hard. Okay, today we are going to see.
Attention drivers 50 and over.
Yeah,
Switch
you
to
go
the
bye-bye.
AARP Auto Insurance Program from the Hartford, and you could save $357.
Hello.
Discover great rates, benefits, and service designed especially for AARP members. Get rewarded for your driving experience. Click on the.
Today we're going to see the second segment in the issue of spirituality, religious freedom. Let me say this, first of all, going back to Peyote Road, Matt is working on getting that so it's audible. So you'll be able to view it again on Angel, okay, if you want to. You have plenty of time to do this paper, okay? So today, what we are doing then is watching a second video that is on the issue of, could we go to the computer? Issue of sacred sites and some of the conflict that exists because of the lack of access to some of these sacred sites that have been important to tribes for centuries, and now they can't access them because they're on private property or what have you. What I want you to do, you're going to see 3 scenarios in this video, and I'm going to start it pretty soon because it's long. 3 scenarios. You're going to see a scenario, well, I'm not going to tell you what they are. You'll see 3. I want you to pick one of those, okay? Not all three of them, just one of them. And this is question number 2. American Indian sacred places is another ongoing issue. Based on the scenarios presented in the documentary In the Light of Reverence, what do you see as the important issues regarding the conflict? Now just choose one, okay? You don't need to do all 3, all right? Again, I'd like us to be very solution-oriented. I want you to think about, as you did with the Treaty of Ruby Valley, of what could be done to remedy some of the conflict about these issues so that everyone is getting at least enough of what they want to satisfy them. Because it is important, and you know, the conflict is quite real. So we're going to see that video today. It's called In the Light of Reverence. I also want you to do question 1, which is to address some of the issues raised in the issue of the Constitution and the use of peyote in the Native American church. And like I said, I will get that. Matt's working on getting that, so it will be very viewable, and the audio will be much better. I don't know what happened to it. This audio is fine. We've already checked it on this one, so we shouldn't have a problem. Okay, I want you to get this to me. Oh, dismember. I wrote dismember 16th. Okay, by the 16th, okay? Speaking of which, real quickly, because of the nature of his class and because it has a component that is not in the classroom, our last day of meeting will be Friday, the 16th of December. Okay? That's our last day. Well, not Friday, but that week. Thursday, the 15th, would be the last day, I guess. What? Yes. I like to end, the classes do go over into the following week to Wednesday, I think. But with this class, because I have students that are online and I like to have the time to get everything compiled and grades ready and stuff. So I always end the week prior to the last week of classes. Okay? And you need to be here on the 16th, or 15th rather. That's when you're going to get your final assignment. It's not in class. It's the same kind of stuff that we've been doing. But it needs, and that will need to get into me before the end of the following week, and it shouldn't take you that long. So we'll talk about that later, though. I want to go ahead and get this video started. I'll pass around a sign-in sheet, and I have to step out for a minute to get some stuff. I'll be back shortly, so let me get this going. All right, let's see. Play. I wish I could see. There we go.
They have the right to come up here and worship. They have the right to do anything anybody else does on the public land. But so do we have the right to mine.
Oh, wait. I don't know what happened here. This is...
You can go on public lands. You can go on public lands to...
Oh, wait, no. Never mind.
A cyanide pool.
This is just...
But you cannot go on public lands to pray for the earth and its continued fertility.
A long time ago, the Sun and Spider Woman created the earth. With her saliva, Spider Woman molded clay, breathed spirit into it, and gave birth to the people. Then she taught them how to care for land and life.
That's my grandpa.
For most Americans, the Holy Land exists on another continent. But for Native Americans, the Holy Land is here. On public land and on private property, Native Americans are fighting for hundreds of sites. This is the story of three communities, the Lakota, Hopi, and Wintu, and the places they care for. Threatened by mineral extraction, recreational uses, and competing religions.
If you look at the Earth, there are certain places that seem to have power. And we don't know what kind of power it is, except you have a different feeling. You feel energized. And that's why a lot of the ceremonies are you simply go out into the land at a certain place under supervision of a medicine man, open yourself up. And what I think is powerful about these religions, you can continue to have revelations. So all the revelation is telling you is how you and your community at this time in life can adjust to the rest of the world. So it's not like we designated a place and said this is going to be sacred. It came out of a lot of experience. The idea is not to pretend to own it, or not to exploit it, but to respect it. Trying to get people to see that's a dimension of religion. It's really difficult.
The Black Hills was the center of life. If a man was dying, he was starving, he was poor in spirit and in body, and he went into the Black Hills, the next spring he would come out of there in excellent health. His life and body would be renewed. So to our grandfathers, the Black Hills was the center of life, and all around it, those areas, they were considered sacred, were kept in the light of reverence.
Okay, right over there, Eric. Go stand by Marvy. All the lead runners over here with Marvy. Come on, you guys, let's get on the road.
Good. Each summer, Lakota runners circle the Black Hills, 500 miles in 5 days. The runners follow the course of a mythic foot race between the two-legged and four-legged animals to determine who would be the strongest and the wisest. Now, the humans run to renew their spiritual claim to land they never gave up. One of the most important sites on the run of the sacred hoop is Mato Tipila, or the Lodge of the Bear.
Mato Tipila is like a beacon in the ocean, the lighthouse. And one of the things that really inspire me is the quiet serenity of that area.
I just tell her you're the reincarnation of Sitting Bull.
My grandmother said this is where they have the vision in the month of June. And she said everything comes back to life in the month of June. And this is where we should all get together and renew our own life.
For the Lakota, the tower was created to save a group of children fleeing an angry bear. For most people, it was created by Hollywood. After the tower was popularized as a magnet for space aliens and their human followers, the number of annual visitors doubled. Then, the sport of climbing experienced a population explosion. The National Park Service confronted the issue of crowds of rock climbers on a place considered sacred to Plains Indians. In 1995, the Park Service asked climbers to voluntarily stay off Devil's Tower during the month of June and tried to ban climbing with hired guides. Commercial guide Andy Peatfish, represented by the Mountain States Legal Foundation, sued the Park Service, challenging the proposed ban.
This is not private land. This is federal land. It is set aside by the Congress for the enjoyment of the American people, and people go there for that reason. And now the Park Service comes in and says, well, it's not totally open. A whole part of the reason for its establishment is closed off to people because, unless they practice a certain faith. And I think that's a very dangerous precedent.
To me, climbing lifts my spirits more than any other activity that I've ever participated in. When I climb the tower and I get up on top there and I'm, fully engaged with nature and I'm actually feeling it and touching it and, wedging my body into it.
I've received the criticism of I am climbing on someone's church. I don't mean to offend anybody, but if there's a climbing ban that's put in effect, then I'm being locked out of my church. The church ought to be open.
Hey, good morning, Brenda. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Well, it's another day climbing, so it can't be bad, can it?
Of course not. We close off the tower to climbing during the month of June. It's a voluntary closure. We ask you not to, out of respect for the American Indians and the ceremonies that they come and do, especially around the time of the summer solstice. Sundances take place here, vision quests and sweat lodges as well. And so I would like you to read this and then decide whether you want to climb. If you decide that you do want to, I will give you a card, and you're more than welcome to go out.
Are we ready? Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Indian people feel that anyone on the tower or anyone pounding bolts in the tower is acting in a disrespectful manner. They believe that that disrespectful act is actually interfering with the efficacy of their ceremonies. It's two different belief systems in conflict.
As I looked up at the tower, it imparted to me a feeling of violation, a sense of desecration. And I thought to myself, why are they doing this? Don't they have any respect for anything?
When a land-based religious practitioner walks up to me, tells me to stick my rope, my climbing shoes, and my rack in my pack, and hit the road and get the hell out of Devil's Tower and never come back, which is what they're advocating. They're not advocating strictly the month of June. If you talk to them, they don't want climbers here, period.
While a handful of climbers sued the Park Service, June climbing at Devil's Tower has dropped off by 85%. These rock walls are at Mount Rushmore National Memorial in the Black Hills, 80 miles from the tower.
I live and stay in Wyoming because I love it. My favorite spot on the planet is Devil's Tower. It keeps me there. I go other places during the month of June because I choose to respect Native American beliefs.
I'm thankful that majority of the climbers have thus respected our wishes. We also recognize that some of those people, it's a way of life for them economically. They have no spiritual connection to the larger the bearer. It represents something far different than as we see it as Lakota people.
When their territory was penetrated by the Americans, the Lakota and other bands of the Sioux fought to defend it, and they won. It was the first military conflict ever lost by the United States. By treaty, the Black Hills and Devil's Tower belonged to the Sioux. In 1874, an expedition led by General George Armstrong Custer broke the treaty, entered the hills, and found gold. The Black Hills gold rush was on. Since then, the Sioux have battled to regain title. It is the longest standing legal battle in U.S. history, fought from reservations far from their sacred places.
The racetrack around the Black Hills is a ring of red rock, stained with the blood of the animals who raced there. Magpie raced for the humans and caught a ride on buffalo. When the finish line was in sight, that clever bird flew ahead and won. Thus, humans won the right to hunt buffalo and accepted the responsibility of caring for all species.
You run for a reason. You're not running for yourself. You're not racing. Who could be the best runner? It's not that.
We may be the poorest people in Shannon County, but we're rich in our culture. Prayers are important because that's the backbone of our nation. We pray wherever we go, every day. We don't need a church to say we love one another, because we do.
Recreation is one of the top 5 income generators in every western state. It's very, very important. But what we also see is the potential that mining activity or oil and gas activity or timber harvesting or ranching or water development or these other activities that are very important economically could also be stopped as a result of, well, somebody thinks it's sacred, and that's enough for us.
It's not that Indians should have exclusive rights there. It's that that location is sacred enough it should have time of its own. And that once it has time of its own, then the people who know how to do ceremonies should come and minister to it. See, and that's so hard to get across to people.
In the corner of the mind of many judges is the idea that these just can't be real religions. Religion is something you do in a church. Real religion isn't something you do in nature. The category for that is recreation. And the idea that a religion could be tied to a particular place is not part of the life experience of these judges.
A Wyoming judge issued a preliminary injunction against the Park Service's ban on commercial climbing, ruling it was a government endorsement of native spirituality in violation of the First Amendment. The Park Service dropped the ban. The climbers went further. They challenged the remaining Park Service policies that ask visitors to change their behavior in deference to Native American beliefs.
The basic issue here isn't legal. The basic issue here is respect for other human beings. That somehow we must co-inhabit this planet. And we do that by making accommodations for each other. Throughout the national park system, we have religious structures and religious features. We have Quaker churches, we have Baptist churches, we have Spanish missions. Talking about religion or talking about cultural beliefs is not proselytizing.
The Great Spirit answered his prayers. The 2 little girls standing on the boulder grew to where it is now today, 865 feet.
Now I will tell you, Buster, that I ain't a fan of Custer's, and the General, he don't ride well anymore. To some he was a hero, but to me his score was 0, and the general, he don't ride well anymore.
Our culture is as important as the Indian culture. And we people who have lived here all our lives, we have our own culture that is being invaded by the Indians coming here all the time and taking over, I think.
Hewlett, Wyoming is the town closest to Devil's Tower. Locals involved with Wise Use, a property rights movement, were plaintiffs in the lawsuit against the Park Service.
This tactic of claiming religious areas is happening all over. It's happening at the Medicine Wheel and the Bighorns. And it's just not used to stop climbing. It's used to stop all kinds of activities. And I think that it's just being used as a land grab versus, actual Indian religious purposes.
Our family history goes back 7 generations in Crook County in the ranching business, and there really were no Native Americans here until they were invited by the Park Service.
We always been there, but they would not see us because we didn't go there to be seen, really. In 1800s, we were prohibited from practicing our own religious way of life. Our vision quests were stopped. Now we can go back again. And that's when we started going back to the sacred sites. But you don't see an Indian visibly going to a place to pray. I went up there and prayed. And so has a lot of people. They walk into the hills and pray. And they walk back after 4 days and leave. We was always been there. So I think that's a culture. You have to know the culture to identify what you see. And if you don't know the culture, you don't see nothing.
And we don't go out and hang our dirty laundry out. And all the prayer bundles at Devil's Tower, to me, is offensive. I must say that. They have all the rest of the United States to hang them in. Why do they have to hang them at Devil's Tower?
Could they possibly worship them any more than we do?
No.
And they surely do not take as good care of it as we take.
When I go to Devil's Tower, I definitely have a religious experience. I think it's one of the most awesome sights I've ever seen, and I've been looking at it all my life. But it's not like the church. It has no similarities at all.
The central problem is that Western religion is basically materialistic. And I think that's because of the Western tradition that God works in history, which is to say in events, but not in people and places. So what you end up with then is the capability of establishing a church or shrine any place that's convenient to people. That's treating the earth as an object, and Indians don't believe it's an object. And they base that on thousands of years of experience.
To honor the Great Spirit, Lakota gathered at Matotipila for a sundance. A mysterious woman approached, gave the Lakota a pipe, and taught them how to use it in prayer. As she headed back toward the horizon, the woman turned into a buffalo calf. Since then, she has been known as White Buffalo Calf Woman. Matotipila is remembered as the place where the Lakota received the pipe from the spirit world.
This is a way of saying we respect our ancestors. We love our ancestors. And this has to go on to the next generation, because someday we're not going to be here. And they will have to continue and teach their children and their grandchildren.
for today. Northwest winds of 30 to 40 miles an hour with an additional 1 to 2 inches of rain is possible for the Black Hills this morning.
A lot of people are counting on us to complete this run. 5-day trek around the Black Hills. So that keeps us going hard. And it's all hard.
What we're accommodating here at Devil's Tower is Indian people's rights to their culture. They're here for the long haul, and they know it. These sacred sites are central to the perpetuation of their culture. And one of our jobs here at Devil's Tower is to protect that right.
The courts have agreed. The Park Service's attempt to discourage climbing in June is an accommodation, not an endorsement of Indian religion. Those who choose to climb are still allowed on the Indian sacred monument without penalty. It is a federal crime to climb the faces of Mount Rushmore any time of year.
The Hopi entered the Fourth World through the emergence place we call Sipaponi in the Grand Canyon. We encountered Masao, the spirit guardian of this land. We made a covenant with Masao and promised to be good stewards of the earth. Migrating through the land to find our home on the Hopi mesas, we left behind evidence of our spiritual stewardship, petroglyphs, villages, and shrines. Through the use of these sacred places, we still maintain our claim to this land.
Native people are the only one to take care of that area by prayer, fast, meditate, ceremony. That's how we keep this land in balance. White people don't understand this kind of thing. They're only enough for money and job and a good time. They don't care about land. They wanted to sell and buy and destroy everything.
I didn't realize I was destroying anything but a big, ugly pile of rocks out in the big, ugly middle of nowhere. When the Native Americans come with their concerns, I had to take a step back. And I tried to put myself in their position. And realizing that I can't totally agree with them for my own religious reasons and beliefs, but I was willing to make a compromise.
It's pretty hard to really describe how I felt because all that sudden I seen it was destroyed, and what can I do? It's already done. There's no way I can say, stop it. Nobody's going to listen to me.
As a Hopi, Dalton Taylor's most important obligation is to maintain a ring of shrines around the vast landscape of his ancestors. Mining has altered the path of his pilgrimage. Hundreds of thousands of archaeological sites blanket the Southwest. This is the landscape for which the Hopi claim spiritual responsibility. Long ago, they marked the heart of their homeland with a ring of shrines essential to their religion. Reservation boundaries left many shrines and pilgrim trails outside. Now, some stand in the way of mineral extraction. At Woodruff Butte, at Black Mesa, and at the San Francisco Peaks. To the Hopi, the peaks represent the home of the Kachina spirits, the bringers of rain. clouds form here and travel a trail in the sky to the Hopi mesas. At the base of the peaks, archaeological sites have been destroyed by pumice extraction, and Hopis have fought the expansion of the White Vulcan mine.
There are some prehistoric sites our ancestors has left there before, so we don't make a writing in black and white.
Right.
So therefore, these petroglyphs and the site are our history book.
On the land.
On the land.
And this is Forest Service land. This is not Indian land. I don't want to sound cold or bitter, but they lost the war, and they were put on reservations. As far as sacred ground goes, this ground is really sacred to me, and other mountains. You can't single this one out. If you go to a building, a house, look at the floor, it's made out of concrete. Concrete is rock, sand, and pea gravel, and that comes from a mountain. You can't make roads, you can't make anything without tearing into a mountain. It's just impossible. That's how we make things. That's our culture.
Well, when we started out strictly doing lightweight concrete, and then in the 80s it kind of took off. What sparked it was a stonewash jean fad, which is still a pretty good market for it. We did between $2 and $3 million worth of business last year.
The only thing that they're concerned about is the money. And I don't know, it's just they have dollar signs in their eyes, and it's hard to stop people that they're just making money off of something that's not supposed to be sold.
Pressured by tribes and the Sierra Club, the Clinton administration solved the conflict at the San Francisco peaks with money. For $1 million, the owners agreed to shut down the mine.
Spider-Woman watches the disputes between the takers and the caretakers. Each time the people lose their way, she leads them through a hidden doorway to a new world. 3 times, previous worlds were destroyed after humans wandered off the spiritual path and misused technology. 3 times, people were given another chance. This is the 4th and final world.
In the previous world, the people living there perfected technology to the point where they begin to use it for the wrong reasons, accumulating wealth, power. And they did magnificent things with technology to the point where they felt that God was no longer, the creator or whatever you call it, was no longer needed, that we have become the gods. We're now letting technology out of control again, giving it a life of its own. We're repeating the mistake. We haven't learned our lesson.
The Hopis named this butte after this plant, and the Hopi call it Chimuna. So they name it Chimuntikwi. Chimuntikwi.
Chimuntikwi, or Woodruff Butte, is private property. Early settlers renamed the butte after a prophet of the Mormon Church, Wilford Woodruff. Ancestors of the Hopis camped here and left rock writing that can still be read. Until 1990, Hopis on pilgrimage visited their shrines here without interference.
There are places on earth where we set up shrines to deliver our offerings, our prayers. Those shrines are kind of like the doorway to the spiritual world.
The shrine is where we deposit our prayer feathers. We pray for rain. So this is pretty important butte, not just for the medicine, but for people to come and pray too.
In 1990, bids were opened for repaving Interstate 40. Despite Hopi protests, a gravel mining quarry was opened at the butte to supply the rock for asphalt.
In about 1991, the Hopi tribe was informed that bulldozers were up on Timon. The local residents were very frantic because they had a very personal association with the butte. It is a very important landmark for early Mormon settlers. But for the Hopis, it is not just a landmark. It is the place of at least 8 Hopi religious shrines.
There's nothing out there on this piece of property that's tangible to me. I've been out there a lot, and I stand there some days by myself and try to understand what they're telling me. There's nothing I can see, so I can't perceive it being important to this degree. It's not a burial site. There's not artifacts scattered all over it. This is not what I'd consider a beautiful piece of property with birds and trees and a creek running through it. This is a barren piece of rock sticking up in a barren piece of land. And I just can't get there.
When federal funds are used to develop a site that might one day be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, cultural and environmental impacts must be considered, even on private property. The Hopi sued to stop the mining on Woodruff Butte, demanding that the Federal Highway Administration comply with the law.
The operator was there, and we asked him to see if he could delay any bulldozing until we could talk with the owners, but they refused. We literally saw one Hopi shrine bulldozed before our presence there.
What incentive was there for me to work around something I couldn't see? And why should I? When we all visited the property, I was told that if they showed me specifically where it was on the property, then it would not have religious value to them anymore. In other words, they couldn't show me. So I guess I did bulldoze it. I couldn't see it. I didn't know what to work around.
5 centuries ago, the Indian worldview and the Anglo worldview clashed and were never reconciled. And 5 centuries later, they still aren't reconciled. And it's not some kind of romanticism. The Indian worldview, Indian spirituality really does have a connection with the land that we're missing in the larger society. A sense that the land can provide healing, a sense of obligation to the land, a sense of permanence.
For 1,000 years, the Hopi have farmed in the desert. Their culture is based on corn, water, and ritual. Throughout the year, Hopis journey to hundreds of remote places to pray for the well-being of the entire world. Here, the shrine is a spring. Cornmeal and an eagle feather are offered to invite the spirits of the ancestors to visit the cornfields as rain clouds.
It's a sacred site because its ancestors came through here and marked this and move on, telling the world that somebody been here a long time ago.
In the secretive Hopi society, traditional law forbids identifying certain places to the uninitiated. When places are known, they are more vulnerable.
What I've found, being an archaeologist, is that the littlest bit of information about a location often will lead to that location's discovery and destruction. On the tribal side, they can't share too much because they've been burned a lot in the past by sharing too much.
We are not allowed to tell the outside world everything. And a lot of it has to do with land.
Hopis never fought a war with the United States, and they never signed a treaty giving up land. During the reservation push, Hopis held onto their homes on the mesas. The dry, rocky ground was not that valuable to settlers, but all around it was up for grabs. If you were an Indian, you were locked out. If you were a miner or a homesteader, you could claim land for $2.50 an acre. Woodruff Butte went from government control to private hands in 1917 for $400. In 1991, the McKinnon family paid $100,000 for the butte. 5 years later, they offered it to the Hopis for $3 million. It was more than they could pay. In 1996, the Hopi tribe received a videotape in the mail from residents of Woodruff, Arizona. For the first time, bulldozers were taking the top of Woodruff Butte.
You can see that they're working right now. You can see where the rocks are now sliding down.
By the time the Hopi reached the butte, the summit was gone, and with it, their pilgrimage shrine where Dalton Taylor delivered his prayers.
What can I do to replace it? Because that shrine has been established there thousands of years ago.
They pointed out right within the staging area one Hopi shrine that we had previously identified. And they sort of mocked us by saying that, Hopis, you have one remaining shrine here. So what's the big deal? You guys can still, come to the butte and pray here.
The biggest right that we have is private property, and that's huge. I'm going to mine it until they forcibly remove me from it, and I think they've tried all their intimidation and every other tactic under the sun to get me to go away, and I'm not going to because I believe it's without a doubt my right to go up there and do that.
At the base of the butte, Dalton Taylor discovered Hopi petroglyphs had been damaged by gunfire.
These markings tell us that the water clan has been settled here before. It comes over here, but it's destroyed. They even wrap it with a rock, then shoot with a rifle. It looks like toes print. It's a baby-like. You can recognize it if this was there, this part here. They're just using a rifle to knock all that wall off. Sort of like erasing written paper. Hopis won't claim it because it's erased now.
The use of federal funds for Woodruff Butte aggregate was stopped, but not before hundreds of thousands of dollars were paid to extract gravel, which ended up on the interstate. County, state, and private construction projects keep up the demand for rock. The mining continues.
As a Hopi, when you look out into the landscape, you always have to remind yourself that that's where you came from. And in Hopi culture and religion, that's where you go back to. Our people had to endure hardship, the elements of the environment that they had to survive in. Through this hardship, they were instructed to go back to the Earth Center, which is today the Hopi Mesas. There is now a mining operation that is using up thousands of gallons of water a minute, and we're very concerned. We've seen impacts local around the Hopi villages where springs are no longer producing, and we have seen springs where they have died completely out.
In this landscape where water is life, the impact of one mine dwarfs all the rest. Black Mesa is not on public or private property, but on reservation land. Here, in hopes of economic prosperity, Hopis themselves and the neighboring Navajo tribe signed away mineral and water rights to Peabody Coal Company for the largest open-pit coal mine in the United States. Coal from Black Mesa is mixed with water and slurried by pipeline 273 miles to a power plant in Nevada to provide energy to Los Angeles and the cities of the Southwest. The coal slurry takes 3 million gallons of pristine underground water each day.
In 1966, when the Hopi Tribal Council signed a mining lease with Peabody, the council was not aware of the magnitude of the mining. Our lawyer explained to the council that underneath us is a huge ocean of water, and that the mining company will just take 1 cup from a sea of water. Today, the mining company is extracting 4,000 acre-feet of water per year. If you take this much water from a desert land that gets less than 12 inches a year, it doesn't take a brainy person to know there's going to be serious damage.
We're not supposed to sell our water because it's very important to us.
All of our ceremonies are evolved around the spring. Men's ceremony, winter solstice, women's ceremony. It's utilized throughout the year. Back in 1902, this spring was almost up to the top. But now, the waters will roll down into right about in the middle of this right here. When I finally realized what Peabody is doing, sucking the water underneath us, all our springs are dry now. And some of, like this one here, it's not what it used to be. You know, it used to be up, almost up to the top.
We broke a covenant. And I think that's what bothers all Hopis these days. How do we make up for it? You know, we made a terrible mistake. We have sold our soul to this company.
Under the mining lease, if there is significant depletion of the underground water, the Secretary of the Interior can shut down the slurry line and force Peabody to find another way to transport the coal. A review of the government's own hydrology data by the Natural Resources Defense Council found evidence that damage to the aquifer and to Hopi Springs has already occurred. Peabody Coal Company declined an interview for this film.
The Hopis say, when you die, when every living thing dies, they join the cloud people. We rise from our graves as mist, and we travel with them up to the mountains. We come down as rain or snow. Then we take our long journey back home, the ocean, the underground aquifers. We're going home. We go home, we rest, come back again. The Western science have the same version, except the we is disconnected totally from the phenomenon, the cycle. We have no part in it. In our world view, we are the clouds. We are the rain that comes down.
This is a test of the Indian broadcasting system. This is only a test.
We haven't had anybody bring us any coffee or donuts. Those regular listeners know that I don't like coffee, I like hot chocolate.
And you are listening to listener-supported community radio for the Sacramento Valley, FM 90.1, KZFR in Chico, California.
There are drums beyond the mountains, and they're getting mighty near.
Coming back, we came back. We were up there at ceremony. It was a good ceremony. Went to the spring.
The kids come last. I'm going to take the big people first.
When we go to the top of the mountain, she's just a little plain person, you know, not all dressed up, not all big pipe in a certain way and all of that sort of stuff. It's just us and nature and the spirit world, you know.
When you look around, you only see the good things. When you smell this root, we give you power and strength to ward all evil away from your heart and soul. When you speak, you only speak the right thing. So help me, Great Spirit.
Florence Jones is the top spiritual doctor of the Winnemem-Wintu of Northern California. Their ancestral home is the McCloud River watershed, south of Mount Shasta. Healing ceremonies have been conducted here for 1,000 years. Now Florence Jones is handing them down to her great niece. For 15 years, they have fought a proposed ski resort on Mount Shasta and resisted New Age newcomers who congregate at their sacred site.
This whole area is part of that religion. You can't have a religion without the land. It's not something that you read in a book, but it's the way you walk on the land and the way you treat your relatives, all of the relatives.
The relatives include a whole landscape animated with spirits, in the animals, the plants, the mountain itself, and the Wintu's sacred spring.
It's always bubbling. And that sand coming up like that, and if anybody go around there, if they greet them, then the bubbles go right to you. You're accepted. The same old way. Over 80 years ago. It's still that way. Probably always will be that way.
When Florence Jones was born, Wintu shamans determined that she was a special baby who would become a healer. She made her first visit to the spring at Panther Meadows, high on Mount Shasta, in 1908.
I always feel like time's running out, and then when it's gone forever. You know, there isn't anyone else, like the language. Grams and Emerson are our last two fluent speakers. And when they're gone, the language is gone. You don't get to hear conversation anymore. When that language isn't a living language anymore, then what?
At the time of first contact with non-Indians, there were 14,000 Wintu. By 1910, there were only 395. Florence Jones was one of them.
But your whole family had to move out, right?
Everybody had to move out, both from Pitt River and McCloud River.
Like most Northern California Indians, the Wintu have no reservation. During the gold rush, they quickly lost their lands to miners and settlers. The government paid bounty hunters to kill Indians, $5 a head. The population was decimated. 150 years later, the United States still does not recognize the Wintu as a tribe. Their religion has survived government policies of extermination and assimilation.
The process of training the doctors starts, from birth and extends to a time where they are to visit all the sacred places. And all along the river, she had to go, and at 10 years old, she had to go there alone to travel that whole length of the river. Right after that, she was captured when they came in to hunt for kids and was taken. And the parents had no right to stop it, no rights to say, she's in training. You can't take her, she's our next doctor. in the boarding school, they baptized her. And they started trying to introduce the church into the lives of these kids. They didn't let you speak your language. They marched you around all the time. If they weren't tending to you, they let you march in circles just to keep you moving. Her family all stayed on the McLeod River even after the killings of smallpox and whatever else that came in that kind of wiped out the population until the dam came in. All the Indians were moved out of the McLeod River. There are a lot of sacred places under the lake now.
Graham, what do you think will happen if they build that ski resort and that spring is ruined? What will happen to the people, the Wintu people, like for ceremony and for going on?
That's when we have to pray a little bit harder. Maybe someday they'll see the light and see the good and the beautiful world and nature. They might wake up and see all that. Somebody's got to do that somewhere. We just all can't just be dumb and die.
Indians and environmentalists were allies against the ski resort. Faced with lawsuits and protests, the forest supervisor agreed to meet with the Wintu at their summer camp below the mountain.
We said that we thought it was appropriate to have a ski area there, so the Forest Service went out with what we call a prospectus, and then people bid on it, and then we selected someone. So we are the ones that said we think that a ski area would be appropriate here.
When those ski runs go in and those people impact that area and that sewage system is set, every dollar that you're putting into restoring that area, that's nothing. That's almost a distraction from the real problem of what's going to happen to the spring.
We made a decision to do it. We can't simply undo it. We spent 10 years or so on this. We were asked to analyze something we hadn't done before. We're doing that in good faith.
What gets me and hurts my heart is you people allow all Tom, Dick, and Harry to come into my church. That's what I'm asking. How could you keep them out of our church?
The only way I can keep people out of that spot is to say that because of the damage to the plants, the damage to the rocks, the damage to the water, nobody goes in there.
What they do,
and if I say,
they did everything under the sun to ruin that place. Yeah. They contaminated my spring.
Yes. I'm trying to work on this. You know, that's what I think. I'm trying to figure out a way that I can keep everybody else out and still allow for your ceremony. But I can't break the law because it's public land.
This is sacred ground, and Mother Earth is, and we gotta respect it. And I like to see it go on. I want the little people to know what their great-grandfather and what their people done, so they can carry it on when they get older. I don't want to see it die out.
It's a wonderful area when you get up there, and it's just so pristine, it's so beautiful, and you can ski over to areas and just sit there and listen and watch and see nothing for hundreds of miles. There's just nothing like it. We can offer that to a lot of people that could never experience that anyplace else, and it could help us financially, locally, for a lot of people too.
When you look at the land, what is the first thing people see? How they can make money on it. So it's money or learning how to value what looks like nothing. Because when the people came here, they said, look at the Indians, they've done nothing with this land. Well, in our worldview, it's like, that's great. It looks so natural. That's the way it's supposed to be.
The environmental movement, whether anybody wants to see it or not, is a movement of religion. It's a movement of respecting Mother Earth as opposed to the God of the universe who I believe created all things. And how can you fight religion? How can you go against religion? You know, that's a bad thing.
Before there was a visible world, spirit beings roamed. To choose what physical form each spirit would take, Creator called them to his home on Mount Shasta. One became eagle and flew off. Another chose bear and walked away. Sunflower took root in the mountain meadow. All but one anxious spirit had chosen. Creator was tired of waiting. Finally, the little being said, I'm going to be a human, and ran down the mountain. Creator thought, that one's going to need help. So he called back the water spirit, the fire spirit, and the mountain spirits, and asked them to take care of this little human because he doesn't know his purpose.
Backed by the Bible, American pioneers once condemned tribal religions as pagan. A century later, their descendants imitate Indian rituals. The harmonic convergence in 1987 turned Mount Shasta into a mecca for the New Age. Every summer day, the Winnemem Wintu are outnumbered by other celebrants at Panther Meadows.
Wherever truth is running as a spring, that's what I'm interested in. And it doesn't really matter what culture it's coming from or whether it's indigenous or not. When people are drawn to a sacred place, I feel the need to allow space for inspiration for a person coming from wherever.
Your day of baptism. This is a free country, right? It's a free country, and all of the land out there, that's where you can express your freedom.
A lot of the New Age begins to look to traditional Native or traditional indigenous peoples for some answers to their own spiritual bankruptcy, to their own need for their own self-gratification. In an effort to find themselves, they're appropriating a lot of Native belief systems to plug into it on the weekend, only to get a feeling for themselves alone. They feel an emptiness.
To me, the spiritual lineage has as much importance as the blood lineage. I feel I've been Native American. I feel I've been black. I know I've been Chinese, Egyptian, many, many different things.
We are one. We are one with each other like we're infants in the mother. We are one. We are one with each other. We are one with the heartbeat tribal.
That area right there is our church. And this is how you behave in our church. But they believe that it's as much theirs as anybody's because it's out here. If we built a building around it and said, this is our building, and inside this building is our sacred spring, and this is how you behave in it, then maybe they would, because then they can see the boundaries of what is ours. You know, just like we couldn't walk into the Catholic Church and say, hey, I think we should have a little fire right here because that's our way. We need a fire. That's a sacred thing. That would ruin the church, right?
Hi, I really like your music. It's great.
Very nice.
It's very soothing.
Good drums.
Yeah, good drummer.
So you know this area is sacred to the Wintu tribe?
It feels very sacred.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Wintu tribe.
Florence Jones, she's
Oh,
a
yeah.
shaman. She's one of the last native speakers of the Wintu. They never camped here at all. They came up here for ceremonies. And they've told us some of the things that they have a hard time with, and that's nudity, when people are nude here, which is often, I mean, totally nude, sunbathing. Because it offends, it's like their church, so like if you walked into their church nude.
The area means things, has a symbolism that it's difficult for me as a Westerner to really comprehend. But I think Julie's description of it as her church, if you think of wherever your church might be,
Which might be
it's
here,
like,
right here, right.
Yeah, if somebody desecrated that.
But how would being nude be
Yeah,
desecrated?
nudity is not desecration.
To her, see, it is, but
Well, that's
Yeah.
the barriers that she
If a
has.
little
Yeah,
child
that's-
walks to the spring and takes some water,
That's not our blocks.
a
But-
child is innocent.
Well, their tradition is not to bring any children up here because they think the spring is too powerful.
Well, we definitely feel the sacredness of it. We want to treat it with that sacredness and live in that ceremonial way that the Native Americans did.
Now there are masses of populations that are coming through with no direction. I mean, there are so many churches, it's like going down the cereal aisle at the supermarket. It's like, what do you choose? What are you going to be? And, you know, there's only one box of Wintu.
Go back to nature. The most important thing of a human being is go back to nature. Nature takes care of your mind and your heart and soul.
Every August, the Wintu return to Panther Meadows. Florence Jones doctors the people, the spring, and the mountain itself with prayers and songs.
Forest Service is probably, in their own way, waiting for Grams and Emerson to be out of the picture. And then all of us young-looking people, they're going to say, you people don't have no right here. You're just young people. You don't know the old ways. But what are we going to do? How are we going to win this? What do we got to do? Is this so much to ask for? This place? This spot? This spring? There are many springs on this mountain. Why can't those people go there? There's a lot of snow on this mountain. There's a lot of other mountains with snow on it. Why can't those people with the need to ski go there?
We believe that there is a spiritual world out there that is more knowing than we are and has been put there by Creator to help when they can. It would be like if you're in trouble or something happens to you and you start calling for your mom, even though she's nowhere around that could hear you, and you start calling for her. Sometimes women can actually hear that child. For Wintus, that is our mother. And if you want help, you start calling for those helpers or that spring to come and help you.
And truth. I hope all of you people that's here, your hearts will settle and have a good, clear mind change all your bad habits to the good. You all understand? I hope all of you do. Because in spirit, I want to see all of you people again. So we'll adjourn.
When I went to the place where the ski area would actually be, what became apparent was they could see a part of the ski area, and even if they couldn't see a part of the proposed ski area, they would know it was there. They would know that it had impinged upon their special place. They were looking for a place where it would be peaceful, where it would be quiet, where they could meditate and commune with their creator. A ski area with the attendant traffic, noise, people, etc., are just the exact opposite of what these people were saying they needed in order to carry out their traditional activities.
Supervisor Haywood decided against a new ski area on Mount Shasta.
Pretty soon we're going to be a country that's fragmented by every group having its own little set of rights. The pursuit of happiness was the pursuit of private property. And now that's being eroded, in essence, under the guise of religion.
The ruling to not put a ski area up there was a relief. This country is one of the richest countries in the world, and to fight against it with nothing but a belief system, I think it's an amazing decision that they actually found cause or reason not to do it.
In our common land, we do not share a common vision. What is sacred is elusive, like a spider web, unseen until it catches the light. Tribal religions rooted in the land have been denied the religious liberties guaranteed all Americans by the Constitution. The American Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1978 was an attempt to redress old wrongs and prevent cultural erosion. But the law has failed to save critical sites from development. Protections granted by public land managers are vulnerable to shifts in the political winds.
The American Indian Religious Freedom Act is a well-meaning act. It's allowed some progressive officials to protect the old ways. But it's not the same as a statute. Those places are the basis of whole societies, and they deserve to be protected. They're worthy of protection, not as a matter of discretion, but as an absolute matter of right.
When you look at the public and how they view these places, they don't necessarily recognize the significance from the American Indian point of view. They don't know. But once they are told, once that's explained to them, once they've been brought in to understand the significance of place, they'll respect it.
The attitude of our species is that this whole thing was created for us. It has no value except how we use it. The basic problem is American society is a rights society, not a responsibility society. What you got is each individual saying, well, I have a right to do this. Having religious places or revolving your religion around that means that you are always in contact with the earth, you're responsible for it and to it.
Spider Woman told us, if we take care of the earth will take care of us.